we'd appreciate it if anyone hearing this broadcast would communicate with us, as we are very anxious to know how far the broadcast is reaching and how it is being received.
The radio. We use it to find out the weather, daily news, and of course, listen to music. Edwin Howard Armstrong, though not the inventor of the radio, is the father of FM radio, the grandfather of radar, and a great-grandfather of space communication. But he never reaped the full reward of his genius. Born in New York on December 18, 1890, he grew up to be so full of life. He attended Columbia University, where he never missed an opportunity to question his professor's theories. In 1912, Armstrong discovered how Lady Forest's radio tube worked and redesigned it by taking the electromagnetic waves that came from a radio transmission and feeding the signal back through the tube again and again, each time increasing its power as much as 20,000 times a second. He called it regeneration. The increased feedback created its own radio waves, making it a transmitter and a receiver. Not to mention, it acted as a generator of radio waves, meaning radio engineers no longer needed 20-ton generators to get their stations on the air. After he patented his discovery in 1913 and licensed it to Marconi Company in 1914, he went off to France to fight in World War I. Not to mention, he was a captain. While still stationed in Paris, he invented the super heterodyne receiver that is still basic to the tuners found in almost every radio, television, and radar. In 1920, Westinghouse House bought Armstrong's patent for the super heterodyne receiver and started up the nation's first radio station, KDKA in Pittsburgh. And with its first successful broadcast, they announced the election returns.
This is KDKA of the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company in East Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We shall now broadcast the election returns.
The radio industry boomed. However, Marconi's company's time was coming to an end. Radio Corporation of America, RCA, soon bought up all of Westinghouse House's radio patents, and those of AT&T, and any others who had them, including Armstrong's patents for regeneration. However, Lady Forest objected, saying that regeneration was his idea and that he had patented the same invention in 1916, 2 years after Armstrong's patent was granted, and sold the rights to AT&T. With this, he filed a lawsuit that eventually made its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The judge failed to see the technical facts and therefore ruled in favor of Forest. And of course, the RCA company was going to side with Forest as well, in an effort to attain their patent for another 10 years. The truth, however, was that in an economic time of depression, Armstrong had essentially created an industry worth $2 billion. However, that did not get in his way. He began to innovate ideas to fix the static problem, despite some colleagues' belief that static could never be eliminated. And on June 9, 1934, he sent an organ recital via both AM and FM from an RCA tower on top of the Empire State Building. He not only eliminated static, but the sound was also better. Just before World War II, Armstrong successfully lobbied the FCC to create an FM broadcast spectrum between 42 and 50 MHzs. He built an experimental station in Alpine, New Jersey, and started a small network of high-powered FM stations in New England called the Yankee Network. Armstrong went on to prove that FM was capable of dual-channel transmissions, allowing for stereo sound. This compatibility of FM could also be used to send two separate non-stereo programs and telegraph messages simultaneously. He also bounced FM signals off the moon, something that's not possible with AM signals. However, the AM radio was a big business in pre-television days, and some people wanted to keep it that way in order to ensure their profits stayed the same. Founder of RCA, David Sarnoff, controlled all the technical aspects of radio, not to mention he created the NBC and ABC television networks. Sarnoff wanted nothing more than to stop FM radio dead in its tracks. Sarnoff's company, with the support of AT&T, successfully lobbied the FCC to have the FM spectrum move from Armstrong's frequencies to the ones we use today, 88 to 108 MHzs. That move immediately rendered Armstrong's Yankee network obsolete, along with all the FM radio sets which had been produced. The cost to re-equip the stations for the new frequencies would be enormous. Ironically though, Armstrong later found out that RCA and NBC were using FM technology without paying royalties. The new legal battle, compounded with the financial burden that the problems with the Yankee network had caused, fundamentally costed him his health and temperament. Exhausted and out of hope, frustrated by all the litigation, Armstrong exploded with rage. He swung a poker at his wife of 31 years, Marion. The blow landed on her arm. She left him in November of 1953. RCA's greater financial sources eventually crushed Armstrong's legal defenses, and he was left alone and undoubtedly broke. He spent Christmas and New Year's alone in his New York apartment. On February 1st, 1954, Edwin Howard Armstrong put his coat and hat on, wrapped a scarf around his neck, and walked out the window of his apartment on the 13th floor. A month later, Sarnoff announced at RCA's annual meeting that the company had reached an all-time high earnings of more than $850 million. His wife Marion would inherit 21 patent infringement suits against many companies, including RCA, and eventually win a little over $10 million in damages. Radio started to have an FM band included with the AM band in the late 1950s and 1960s. By the 1970s, FM audience size surpassed that of AM, and the gap between them has been growing ever since. Today, over 2,000 FM stations broadcast in the United States, and FM signals are commonly used for microwave relay links and space communications. If Armstrong had stuck around, he might have seen how he changed the world and the fruition of his invention. Forrest and Sarnoff had taken everything he had ever worked for, and all Sarnoff could say on his behalf was, "I did not kill Armstrong."